Hi, Graham. How are you today?
Yeah, Patrick, fine. Yeah, in fact, I'm very happy, especially because I voted this morning.
All right. Tell us what you thought about the whole process and.
Well, of course, it was it wasn't that much different from usual. I had my passport with me, but they'd actually said that all the information was on the polling card anyway. But I'd made sure that I had the passport with me anyway.
Oh, you just made me thought of something. In the future,
yeah,
they're gonna have
yeah,
your picture and probably your fingerprint already.
Fingerprint, yeah.
Already on data.
Maybe birth certificate.
Right. And you know now with some of the
baptism certificate.
No. You know with some of the laptops and some of the
dental records.
What was I saying? Yeah, you know.
What if they find? What if I brought some bones with me, right? And they found out the bone was Lucy from the Ruwenzori,
from whatever period,
Rift Valley in Kenya, and they say no, you can't be here because she's been dead 20,000 or years.
Oh, so all right. Let me just double check on how we. Yeah, see, so we're still in shot. Just have a look. See, we're still in shot there. Yeah, just making sure the technicalities. Yeah. So yeah, you know, like on the laptop, some laptops you just do your fingerprint, right, and it lets you into your laptop. Yeah. Or even now with the phones, all you do is look at your phone and the phone recognizes you to let you in. It's like facial recognition.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're also, right, this is a very terrifying Orwellian prospect. And if the people who ran all these things were as intelligent as the artificial intelligence that they have, their so-called real intelligence, then really they'd be able to catch up. They would be very, very dangerous. But I think a lot of the times they can't catch up with all their things.
Now you see.
So a lot of it's scary, but I think they can't actually do what they, all the things that they want to do.
I think that hang on, just double check. Yeah, we got a red light. Yeah. Now I'm into IT, and this thing about AI, artificial intelligence, right? I think is a little bit of a fallacy in certain cases.
A bit of a con.
Yeah. Right. In some cases, right? Because AI can't. A human thinks like a human, right? And how these machines get intelligent is because it's from like, let's say 10,000 people are given something to eat. 5,000 of them will say yes, oh, this is delicious, and 5,000 would say, oh, it's horrible. So it's just really comparing, right? But from my point of view, it isn't really, it's not really there yet, right? But because people don't know about technology, it's a fear factor. It's a fear factor that you've got to. You now have to buy cars which is electric, right?
Except that the Elon Musk cars, right, are beginning to go out of business because they're too expensive. So paradoxically, the electric cars which are cheap are coming from China, and of course they'll probably have to be sanctioned to stop them flooding the market. So it's all paradoxical, isn't it?
Well, wait a minute, what did you say at the beginning? That the
electric, yes, can you see the minute you've mentioned something, there's contradictions already.
Yeah, but you said electric car was more expensive.
Electric cars that Elon Musk makes, right, are very expensive.
Yes.
And people cannot afford them.
Yes.
And so he, like ordinary capitalism, is going out of business due to consumer choice. Now, now in a fair capitalism, right?
Is there such
Chinese,
a thing?
No.
Anyway, carry on. Carry on.
I'm saying this with my tongue in my cheek.
Carry on.
If there was any such, if there was the Adam Smith type of fairness, which which is assumed, right, theoretically, then obviously, why shouldn't the Chinese government or any other Indonesian government or somewhere, some third world country, could be Bolivia or what have you, flood the market with cheap electronic cars, batteries, chargers, charging solar panels, whatever. But that can't be allowed because that for political reasons. So it's not a free market. It's an unfree market.
Yeah, you're right, but isn't that what they're doing now anyway? Flooding the market with cheap this and cheap that and cheap that. Right? But yeah, go on.
Yes, but it's not allowed to be so cheap that they lose their profit.
Who is it that?
Well, whatever capitalist it is, because capitalism is a cartel on the top level. Yeah. It's oligopolistic, so they work together.
Agreement,
for instance, do you remember when Freddie Laker wanted to cross the Atlantic?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Not cross the channel. Otherwise, he'd have to learn have a swimming lessons from an Afghan teacher. So no, the thing is, Freddie Laker, right?
Yeah.
Right. Actually took the aeroplanes cheaper and crossed the channel.
They didn't.
TWA on that side and BOAC, right? I think.
British Overseas, yeah.
Got together as a cartel, as a monopoly or oligopoly, whatever, and undercut him and then put the prices up again. Yeah. That would not allowed that cheap travel. Real cheap travel, not allowed.
Now, as you say, fair capitalism. So the gas company, the electricity company. Have you heard about the water board?
The electricity, well, aren't they monopolies? But according to the monopolies and mergers commissions, they shouldn't exist. Because they're monopolies shouldn't exist in a capitalist society. They should be broken up.
Isn't that something that came under Mrs. Thatcher?
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes. So now it's become rhetoric, but the reality is that they are allowed to. The water companies are monopolies.
Have you told Sid? Have you remember the ad when they were selling shares for British Gas? Yeah. British Gas. Yeah. Do you remember that? Tell Sid to buy shares in.
I think I've heard of that.
The gas company. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Okay. Oh yes, under the late Thatcherism. There was something called share-owning democracy, and this was meant to combat socialism. This was the free market way of combating socialism. So working class people, poor people could, workers in companies could buy shares in the company, and everyone could be a small shareholder. It's like buying a house owner. And so this would be now meant to be sweep the board with this ideology of everyone buying small shares.
But I tell you one thing that Mrs. Thatcher did do during her time. I can't remember who the minister was in charge at the time, but for so many years.
And you're not talking about taking elocution lessons. Okay, tell us what you did.
Yeah, for so many years, the BT was the main telecoms provider, right? Now the funny thing was you could have bought Mickey Mouse phone from America. Literally Mickey Mouse on the road, right? You could have bought. Yeah. So you had Mickey Mouse phone, but here's what it had a red sticker on it. Which means you can't use it with BT because BT was the only person that did the phones at the time. There was no mobile phones at the time, right? So BT, so you could buy it, but you couldn't use it, and that's a funny kind of technical thing. But one of the things she did was this: she opened it up. Right, so there was the cable companies, and it was opened up to many different companies. We had Cable and Wireless, we had Cable London, right, and we had all over the country. People had bought up little bits and pieces of this cable thing, and they were digging up the road, and they were running They're running cables and stuff. And that was also the beginning of the satellite, B-Sky B. Oh, and there was a thing called British Satellite Broadcasting, and they had a square aerial, right? And there was a race between Sky, Rupert Murdoch, and the British company British Satellite Broadcasting, BSB, and it was headed by the two, one of the two brothers. I think one have died now. He's the film producer, and he does the other brother does the wildlife program. What's his name? Attenborough.
Yeah.
Attenborough. No, Attenborough does the wildlife. Attenborough, who's the movie director, was heading this, and there was a race. And
two Attenboroughs.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, not both of them, but the Attenborough does the movies.
Does the movie. Oh, they have the same name.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
yeah.
And he was in charge. He was part of the British Satellite Broadcasting, and they had a square aerial, satellite aerial to pick this up.
Where are you heading?
Well, wait a minute. There was a race. There was a race to see which one came on. Was it Murdoch, Sky, or was it British Satellite Broadcasting? And Murdoch won, right? And so all the Murdoch,
Fancy that.
right, Sky dishes actually sold, and British Satellite Broadcasting never made enough sales or what have you, so they actually merged. They bought Sky bought out British Satellite Broadcasting, and they merged into one. Now this was part of the Mrs. Thatcher era of the liberalisation. But back to the ground now, the cable on the ground. So also the cable companies, telephone companies. So we had now
what is called hardware.
yeah.
Yes.
So they started digging up the road, and they were running cables and stuff all over the country. There was little companies. Do you ever remember? It's a multinational wireless cable.
Cable and wireless.
Cable and wireless.
Is it from America?
It was.
Oh, yeah,
It was, and it had a big part of the cable network over here, right? And it was one of the major players. But eventually, these little small companies bought out each other. Oh, by the way, let me give you a bit of history on why we're doing this program. One of the part of the contract why Cable London got cable to do London, to have cable in London, was that they're supposed to do a community channel, right? And there were many people that I was talking to, and I teamed up with, in fact, to do work for London Cable. In fact, if you look at some of the manhole covers, you'll actually see Cable London, right? But what happened, eventually, two big players came into the game. Is it two big players? Actually, the big player was the last one. That came in. Two big players. It was Telewest, had bought up all the little franchises, cable franchises, and we had it was Cable and Wireless. It was Cable and Wireless on the other side, and Telewest. And then suddenly this player came on the scene, NTL. Right? Now, I was sitting there in the recruitment, and I said, "Can you tell me what NTL means?" And the recruiter actually couldn't tell me, right? But what they were doing at the time, what it was at the time was they were buying up companies. There was a thing going on in the around the 2000s where they were buying up companies, breaking them up and selling off the individual parts, and they were making a profit. NTL was a similar company, and guess what? It wasn't registered in England. It was registered, I can't remember where it was, like the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, because after Thatcher's Big Bang, where the market's Big Bang, it was sale of the century. Everything was sold off. It's become a disaster.
All right.
Because there's no coordination amongst the companies. They were competing with each other, but there was no logic to it.
Okay, let me just get you up to date with the cable. So we had Cable and Wireless, which was now NTL. NTL bought it out. And when I got the job there, I was getting dental thing, time off, shares in the company, right? And eventually, what they did, in order to maximize profit, they cut that out, they cut that out,
Oh, yeah.
right? We had to do like extra hours instead. The normal day was like from 12 till 4. They extended it from 8.
Well, privatisation always begins with a huge bonanza, like when the buses were first privatised. A lot of money was put into them, and the trains, etc., etc. And people were thinking, this is wonderful, it's much better than nationalisation. But as time went on, you know, the rapacious capitalists, you know, the hawks and the vultures, they start eating and eating and eating, and all these benefits for people like us were cut.
Yeah. So 30 seconds away to the final of with the cable thing, my cable adventure. So we had two companies. So we had NTL and Telewest. So they were on this side. In fact, the depot was down Main Turnpike Lane. In fact, I work for both companies. I mean,
Okay.
So Telewest. So NTL bought out Cable and Wireless, and suddenly there was no Cable and Wireless in the UK anymore. It's an old name. It doesn't make any. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then suddenly,
It may exist under another name.
a long-haired blonde person came along on the scene, right? He's known for music. He's known for aeroplanes.
Ah,
Come on.
Oh right, the hippie capitalist.
Yes.
The one who who wore a suit but also had long hair.
Long white
so
hair.
He was the new hippie guy, and everyone, a lot of especially young people thought he was wonderful.
Branson, right? So Branson, Virgin came along.
He's now in a pickle.
All right, we'll
Okay.
right. So Branson came along. He bought out Virgin, NTL, which was Virgin, and now along the line, a few years along the line, he bought out this side, Telewest, which is now, so the only cable company we have in Britain is called Virgin. Right.
Like the trade, like the
Right.
yes.
So Virgin owns the cable on the ground for TV and telephone, right? Which I'm a very qualified person to do that.
Yeah, but this is what happens. And Marx was talking about it in Das Kapital a long time ago, how companies start out competing, but bigger companies eat smaller companies. They have aggressive takeovers, they call it, and they buy them out and they eat them up, and so there's a gradual monopolization.
And then another
of big companies eating small companies.
All right, two things there.
Especially during recessions.
Two things there. If you're a small company, right? So you're on the north side. I've bought up. I'm Mr. Virgin. I've bought up the whole country, right? But there's only one section left, which is London. And
So you'd be a bit like Asterix when the Romans have taken over.
Right.
You've only got that little bit of Gaul left.
Right. So if I say to you, and your shareholders, I'll say I'll buy your company for double the price it's actually worth, or I'll buy the shares to own your company for double the price. The amount of work you have to do to earn that money over so many years, you'll say, sign me the check, right? And so I've now got you, Telewest, right? And so,
Well, the directors and the shareholders, I mean, it's not loyalty like people have to charities or something, or the people that volunteer in soup kitchens. These people are there for a profit, so they declare their allegiance, and then when they see something more profitable, they dump it.
Mm-hmm. So this capitalism thing, right? Now, did you do mathematics? How good are you at mathematics?
I did, but I'm better than I was, but not very good. But anyway, carry on.
Do you know why the Labour Party is not going to solve any of the financial problems that we have now?
Partly because they don't want to.
I'll tell you why. Why the Labour Party cannot solve. No, it's not. no, it's not the Labour Party. Let me say,
Not him, but his heritage.
why the government, whether it's this one or the next one, why they can't solve their economic problem?
Because the private companies are often even stronger than them. They are very large and actually are the people in control.
Yes, that's one of the factors. Here's what I think. There's a thing called inflation. It's bandied about, but people don't really...
No, it's very hard to understand. It seems mystical, isn't it?
Actually,
like an act of God, something mystical.
Actually, it isn't. Because complex things are made out of a simple thing.
Brilliant.
Now,
Carry on.
The reason why I managed
like to know.
I was working for the cable company
Yeah.
is because electronics and the technicalities, even though it's complex, it's made out of simple things. Anyway, forget about it.
Please carry on. I'd love to understand
All right.
what inflation actually is.
All right. So 10 years ago, 10 years ago, to today, your rent has doubled, hasn't it?
Yes, of course, it's always going up.
Your wages has doubled in order to keep up with the rent,
Yeah.
right? Everything else, everything has doubled, right?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Is it because they're in a constant race?
What is the mechanism of that race?
Competition?
Inflation. 10 years ago, and I'm just simplifying, that mechanism called inflation, every 10 years the price actually doubles, right? So in 10 years time,
but wages might go up by a percentile, but they won't be doubled in the same way as inflation will be. And that's why there are strikes at the moment, because people are earning less than the inflation. So however fast they run, they're like on a down escalator.
that is part of the formula of why the government cannot...
I heard on the BBC World Service night before last, in Argentina, that Mr. Milei, right, he's going to privatize everything in a way that, like the monetarists, like Thatcher, Reagan, and General Pinochet, who followed the monetarist policy and cut everything. And he's going to have shock therapy, and he's going to cut. Now, he promised the people that he would reduce inflation and everyone would be better off. But in fact, it's paradoxical, because now they're paying more tax, which is the exact opposite of what they were told. But only the poor people, the rich people, are paying less tax.
Yeah, but here's what, let me stick...
The poor are actually paying in every direction possible.
What percentage of increase...
He will not, he doesn't seem to want to deal with inflation, because inflation is very good for millionaires.
Yeah, I actually...
But he said he would.
Actually, Argentina has... Actually, I've been studying it. I did do some research. I've been studying it.
Yeah. It's a very rich country. Up until 1911, was one of the richest countries in the world.
It's got a mineral. It's got a mineral that the rest of the world wants.
Oh, the lithium.
But they're not getting a good price for it. But the country next door. Anyway, without going into the
Chile,
without going into the politics, I did research. I don't want to say study, and I did try. But anyway, back to the inflation. So, what percentage was the doctors asking for? What kind of increase were they asking for?
I don't know.
It was something like 35%.
Okay.
Right. That's the amount they needed their wage to increase because of the cuts over so many years. 35%. Now, house prices. Look at how 10 years ago what price they were, right, to like what it is now.
Yeah.
So if you had a house that was 200,000 or 250,000 10 years ago, it's now $500,000. In fact, you can't afford a house, it's $1 million and what have you, because prices are constantly rising. And this thing called compound interest.
Compound, yes, that's what I study. Compound interest.
Yeah,
Its formula.
Right.
In exponential growth, right?
Go on, carry on.
Exponential growth of interest. So that interest, right, is not multiplied by a multiple 10 times 10 times 10. It is multiplied by the power of 10. 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 10. It's very hard for me before my maths class to ever understand, and I think very hard for most people.
Did you use the
to
word
understand.
exponential?
Exponential.
Right, now that's a technical term which I'm familiar with. It applies to many things, technical, right? But basically it's a curve that goes, it goes like this for a long time and then it shoots up,
yes,
right?
It shoots up.
And we are on compound interest. That's why every year it doubles.
Doubles.
Right?
Well, that's what's that's what the IMF, right, has done through with the help of the World Aid, the World the World Bank,
Yeah.
has lent money to third world countries. They have been charged interest rate with compound interest. They can never pay them back. They are in a circle of poverty and poverty. Many countries, right, in the so-called third world have paid back the actual debt, right, by sacrifice and crushing their own people and forcing them into poverty, right, and poverty wages. But they still cannot pay the accumulated debt because it's compounded.
And they never will.
And they never will.
Right. Did you remember a few years back?
And they will never be allowed to, and it will never be written off.
Did you remember a few years back when they were saying about for some of the African countries who were in debt to write off the debt?
To write off the debt.
Did you remember that time?
Yeah, there was churches and other religious organisations getting together with other sort of Keynesian social democrats and people like that and capitalists who had a bit of a conscience, who to actually do a one-off act of kindness, in a way like Christmas, giving some something to the homeless person outside your door.
All right, so
before you go to work, that sort of thing.
Two points I've got to make. So, like your house, like people have mortgages.
Yeah.
Before they actually.
That wasn't going to be allowed to happen, and it didn't.
Right.
It didn't happen.
Well, mortgage,
it wasn't going to be allowed to. The debt cancellation was not. It was called something like Jubilee something. It was a very nice idea, and I felt optimistic and was hoping it would work, because I suppose I couldn't believe how selfish and greedy capitalists could actually be.
One of the biggest campaign points in America for the next election is cancelling student debts, right? Also in this country, you can't get an education in any of the universities or college without paying how much for your education?
Oh, God knows.
Right?
Amazing.
And you're saddled with a debt from the off-go.
Yeah.
But back to...
Maybe that's why a lot of doctors and scientists and people on that level are leaving, because they've got huge student debts to pay. They're getting and people say, well, they're really not getting really poor wages like the RMT or the shop workers, like Asda and that. But so why is the beer made? Like why leaving to go to Canada or Australia or wherever they're going? I don't know. Anywhere, but it could be because then their 5 years of education, they have massive debts which they can't pay off and pay the rent.
Actually, I haven't checked. Are they paying interest on the debt?
Yeah, of course, it's interest.
Right, and if it's compound interest,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but I don't know that. I can't say. I'm not going to say something off. That I
yeah,
don't know.
I'm going to check that.
don't
But
know.
back to
Worth checking.
the 2
Worth
points.
checking, because it's not good to say something that populist that just sounds good.
Yeah. So back
Always
to
check, fact check.
so as I said, with mortgage, before you own your house, you've actually paid 2 and 3 times over the original value. That's because of the compound interest,
Yeah.
right? Before you get it. Now, the reason why any government is not going to solve the current crisis, painful.
Even if they wanted to.
Well,
because they may not actually want to.
well, they've got to get real, or they've got to tell us how to get real. Every 10 years, the price is actually double, right? But your wages. So as you've seen,
Well, you see, none of them want to tax the multi-millionaires, and without doing that, they will not. They will not be able to
All right.
to get the money.
all right, now that's government, right? So that's government. We as individuals, right, back in our day-to-day life, the government will get that money in order to run police and
I've heard that that personal debt is running at very high levels, as well as government debt. In fact, the personal debt is running at very high levels.
all right, before I get into that, this is next generation coming along. You can't see them because the camera is
That's
facing
okay.
that way. We're gonna hear them,
all
or we might just see the side of them. I think they had a sports day today. Right. If you can't see that, you can hear them in the
Yeah, yeah,
background.
yeah.
No, I'm just for the camera when you're watching it. Right. So the reason why is because even though, let's take the national health, right? Equipment price 10 years ago, right? So if you're going to buy a scanner, so the equipment price for a scanner 10 years ago was £10,000. So now it's £20,000. Actually, a good example is like Crossrail, is it HS2, which they started and they have to drop because each year they start off. Most of the government projects starts off with something like saying, I'm thinking another good example is actually the Elizabeth line, which actually went bankrupt for a while. The company Carillion, which was actually
Oh, Carillion, yes, part of the PFI.
private.
Private Financial Initiative,
Right.
And they were made a private company, a PFI company that would work for public buildings like schools and hospitals.
And if you remember, each year
Yes.
there's a public
rack and ruin.
right. Each year there's a public contract. They start off with say, oh, it's 2 billion. And then next year they say it's 4 billion.
4 billion, yeah.
And then the following year they say, oh, it's 10 billion.
And then they dig, and then finally, when they think they're going to be fined in the court, they declare themselves bankrupt.
Right. But
Conveniently,
so the question is, why is it those prices always rise? Inflation. Every year the prices go up.
but what actually? No, I'm going to ask you a technical question.
Go ahead.
What actually is inflation?
Inflation is.
This is my weak point.
No,
I think I need to study it.
We go
I
back.
don't really know.
No, we go back. No,
it's a magic word.
No, you do. Well, actually,
Like
let me explain.
magic
Let
word.
me try and explain.
Yeah.
You said, how you describe capitalism? Fair capitalism. When we started, you said the Mrs. Thatcher.
Well, there are different economic models of capitalism. There's the classical capitalism.
What did I say capitalism was? I said greed.
Yes,
What capitalism is,
that's the
in this case,
driver of the
and
competition.
why the prices go up,
And
is because you buying it at £1. That guy there. So me as a producer, right? I want more money every year. Every year I've got to increase my profit, right?
But why? But we've had capitalism for a long time. But why does inflation happen intermittently
All right.
and not all the time?
Actually,
That's-
actually, no, it happens all the time. but you don't realize it.
Maybe,
Every year,
I see. Yes.
every year,
the prices do go up.
it
So
goes up.
inflation happens all the time.
But guess-
So it's the exponential growth
That
of
catches
capital
it. That
at the
catches
moment.
you out.
So that's what's harming the Tories.
This is where
during in this election.
This is where we're at
because
now.
They can't or won't resolve the huge inflation at the moment, which is rising.
And what did Rishi? What
in a
did Rishi
compound
say?
way.
What did Rishi says? It was 10% a few months ago. He says he's got to bring it down to because it's beginning to go.
I think basically, I think, you know, and as a rational populist, right? I think inflation should be rounded up and put on an aeroplane and sent to Burundi.
When it comes back like a boomerang, right? 10 years later, then everybody be asking for 35% rise.
Burundi's a safe country for inflation. All the world's like a scapegoat. All the world's inflation can be sent to Burundi and its neighbour, called something Wanda.
Yeah.
The fish called Wanda.
Yeah.
Right. Rwanda.
All right. So
and so that can be the place, like sin, like a place where all the sin is. That can be where all the inflation is, and we can be living in hunky-dory capitalism in the rest of the world.
Yeah. So back to
Trickle down, where wealth is trickled down to make us all happy.
So it never did. Never. The rich just ran off with the money. They invested it abroad, right?
No. Well. I mean, talking about wealth trickling down, I find very often that the inside of my legs get very wet, and in a very unexpected way.
Like the bankers in 2008, 2009, they took the profits and ran off.
The way you said that word banker sounds a bit iffy, but we'll leave that aside.
Right, they took the money and ran off, right? And they left the government holding the bill. And still there is companies, banks still part owned by the government right now from 2008, 2009, right? So they took a good example is actually the water company right now. They paying out to the directors millions of pounds, shareholders millions of pounds, but they're saying to the government, we're broke. What did they say? They've got to double the price of the cost of water.
What yes.
Do you remember that? This was only a few weeks ago.
No. Well, maybe it's because it's not just water. Maybe it's that added ingredient called
Oh my God.
E. coli.
Oh my God. Actually,
maybe there's an added ingredient in there that's sort of a bit sticky and brown.
this water here is actually a reservoir as well.
Yeah.
This is actually used as a reservoir.
Yeah.
So if you fall in, right, there's also rats in there, right? But you won't drown. Right, but something will kill you in the end. You won't be
Bile disease.
Yeah, exactly.
Bile disease.
All right, so
is that so in other words, that's like the Tory party.
full of anyway, floating pipes. Anyway, so back to what inflation is. So my interpretation is, so the water board has doubled the price. Why?
Because they're paying their shareholders more and more, and they have to charge somebody, so they have to charge the consumer.
Greed. And my interpretation is greed. Inflation is greed.
But they do make an excuse. They say they need to improve the infrastructure to clean up the to take the turds out of the water.
Right.
They need to take the sewerage out.
So your
But unfortunately, they haven't taken the sewerage out, and the prices are going out. So, but as if by magic, the shareholders are
and they're getting bonuses,
yeah.
right? But we're left with this shit. Anyway, so the water price has
How
doubled.
inappropriate of you, my son.
Right. So you as a domestic customer, the price has now doubled. Right. So you now have to find that money. Not only has the water doubled, your rent has gone up.
Well, it's simple. When you go down to the food bank, right, you want to negotiate with them, right? Negotiate with the volunteers in the food bank, right? Get a bit more, this is free market mechanism. You get some more of thing, and
How
then
very
you sell,
uplifting.
and then you sell you sell the extra, and you know this is market mechanism.
Actually, I do know somebody who's rumored to do that, but that's his survival thing. But back to that point about what inflation is. So now your water bill is doubled. So the trick about inflation is this, and I watched it over time, is when the price goes up by a couple of pence, or 5 pence, or 10 pence, right? You go, oh, no problem. And every year it does that.
Yeah, I
right?
see. Yeah, okay.
Right.
So there's permanent inflation. Okay, now I've got it. I never thought about that before. Yes.
Also, the electricity's gone up. Now, how much did you used to pay for a gallon of petrol 10 years ago?
I've never done that.
All right, but you've heard people
if
say,
yeah, okay, fine,
right?
yes, as a metaphor, yes, as a metaphor,
right?
Yeah.
So it goes up every year, but what it does, even today, you just watch how the petrol price goes up by 2 pence, and part of the trick about this inflation is this: it is when it goes up by 2%, say like 50 pence. Okay, you may moan, I was thinking about a can of beer. A can of beer a year ago used to cost, or 2 years ago, it used to cost like £1. Now it's over £1. There was a time when it was 50 pence. All right, let's go back to Mars bars and Twix and what have you.
Yeah.
10, 20 years ago, it was like...
not the kind of, and don't use them in the way Donald Trump uses them.
Well, you had to
Yes.
pay Stormy Daniels.
Yes,
He's
yes.
in a lot of problems with
Yes,
Stormy Daniels.
he used a lot of Mars bars. Anyway, carry on.
All right, so back in the day, a sweet used to cost you, a Mars bar used to cost you like 20, 30 pence. How much does a Twix cost you today?
Oh, it's gone up a lot.
Inflation. In fact, there's...
and the cocoa growers of the cocoa growers of Ghana and the Ivory Coast and Colombia are probably ending up with even less so in the middle it's being robbed, isn't it?
Right. So that's inflation. So when it goes up the other thing was shrinkflation. So a lot of people are complaining now. See, every year the prices go out. And it goes up at such a small amount, you go, oh, that's okay.
It's not a small amount.
And eventually
okay.
You reach a stage where it's actually doubled.
Yeah.
Right? And then you
but
go...
What's shocking people at the moment is the huge growth. And the thing is, now they're saying it's coming down, but it's gone up so much in such a short amount of time, it shocked even loyal Tories and nationalists and people
and what was that curb
royalists.
And what was that curb called?
Exponential growth,
right?
Yes.
And
rapid growth.
That compound interest.
Compound growth, yes.
Right.
Rapid growth.
Right.
Yeah, but the thing is now that even if we assume that it doesn't go up any further, which I don't know enough to know, but let's assume that they're right about that. The fact is, it's been such a big shock and so high that people are really finding the huge struggle all across the board.
And they will continue. Let me just conclude the point of why the government won't be able to pay the bill, right? Whoever's in, no. On the simple thing, without the exponential part.
No, they won't be able to pay the bill because they won't tax the multi-millionaires. Starmer said he's not going to do it. He went to the Daily Telegraph and the Daily Mail, and he said, I'm not going to do that. So therefore, they didn't like Corbyn because he said he was going to do it. He said he won't do it, so without taxing the tax avoiding multi-millionaires, the people with the Panama Papers, those people who are living in the Caribbean on little islands.
Super yacht.
No, not living in the Caribbean that but the Caribbean islands that they own, and only the only black people there are their servants.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Now the thing is, this is the other side of the equation. They can get money from them, but they won't. And we've been told they're not going to do it. So therefore, then they will say they can't get the money. And they'll say that's economics. And it's like, as Margaret Thatcher said, economics is like the iron law of gravity. She used this metaphor. It was a deliberate contrick.
Yeah.
Because she knew enough to know it was a social. It's a social science. It's a social creation. It's a creation of people. It's not physics. It's not the iron law of nature. It's not the iron law. It's nothing to do with gravity. I don't know exactly what inflation is, but I know it's a social creation, or an economic creation, a social economic creation that is to do with choice, and is not like gravity.
All right, look, I agree with you. And as for the non-doms and those companies being taxed, etc., that adds to it. Here is why they won't pay the bill. They can't pay the bill.
Can't pay. I think there was a food bill. Wasn't there a food?
No.
Can't eat. Can't cook. Won't cook.
Yeah.
Can't pay. Won't pay.
Yeah. That was about the debt collectors.
Yeah.
Can't pay. We take it away.
Yeah.
And there's a whole series of
but there are no debt collectors that are going to the huge multi-millionaires and asking them to pay their fair share of minimum taxation.
Because the person who made up the rules for taxation, what job do they usually have? Exchequer, right? When they leave office, they go and work for those big companies.
Yeah, the revolving door.
Right. So they go and work for the big companies. So
majors go into the defence contracts and vice.
Right.
All revolving
so
doors.
when he picks up the phone, when the Chancellor of Exchequer pick up the phone and he's representing the tax department of a super duper rich company, say like Elon Musk, and he phones up and he's talking to the person on the other side, and he's talking about tax. He goes, "Yeah, I know. I made those rules." Right. So therefore, under this, that, we can do such and such. Oh, and by the way, we'll meet for lunch tomorrow, and we did discuss it in more detail.
I remember in the university, one of the best books I read in a sociologist, American sociologist, called C. Wright Mills, and he said that many of the negotiations that the very wealthy make are not done in Parliament or done in the Congress.
On a napkin.
Are done on the golf course, on the golf course.
Yes, or on a napkin at dinner in a restaurant.
I didn't know that, but yeah, it makes sense. It's similar. Yeah. That's something new. Good.
You work. Oh, this is what I love about the banking sector over there in Docklands. All the banks are there. So I'll phone you up, and you're in the next building, skyscraper, and going, "Yeah, Graham, how about dinner? Right? I'll buy you lunch. Right?
Bring a clean napkin because I haven't got good eyesight.
Yeah, I've got a credit card. We're launching a new credit card. We want you. So we have. So we're there having lunch and stuff, and they go, "We got this new credit card thing, and we're gonna ask for." And you go, "Oh, can I get involved?" And they say, "Oh, all right, okay. What percentage rate would you want, and how much and what have you?" So, all right. When I go, I'll talk to my boss. You talk to your what? It's literally done. But you said the golf course, exactly, similar. Anyway, without going to, I still haven't answered the question why they can't, and it's simple as this.
Yeah.
Every 10 years. What did we agree? The price is double, right? That machine that was 10,000, right, 10 years ago, it's now 20 or even 30,000, right? You cannot, this is where they fall down. You cannot say what you gave the NHS 10 years ago, you cannot give them the same now. Guess how much you got to give them?
Much more.
What factor did I say?
I don't know.
Double.
Double.
And what have they been doing for the last 10 years? They've been cutting. right? So in fact, right? In fact, what the NHS is running on is probably 1/3,
Yeah.
right?
Well, why do you think that people are waiting in hospital corridors? That didn't happen in the 1960s and 70s when people were very satisfied. Why many of the accidents are happening due to the dog tiredness of the people there, and a lot of the hospital related diseases are done because the poorly paid cleaners whose money is mostly being taken by the private companies they work for, and they are just unable to keep the place as clean as it needs to be. I mean, it's the outcome is a social disaster for us. The outcome is pain, the kind of pain you see in Palestine. You know, is vested on us to a lesser degree, but. And I don't know, and this is a good question for the bigots to think that someone across the world who's getting the same kind of pain, except it's much more. But that's the pain given by the wealthy there and here.
All right, two points there now. One is about minimum wage, and the second one's going to be about the Arab Spring, how it started. But back to the minimum wage.
Well, I'm sure they're related. Don't you think, after they asked for democracy, if they got democracy, don't you think the next thing they might be asking was for better wages?
All right, let me go first handle the minimum wage. Have you heard it's risen?
It's in April or something, yes, it's risen.
Well, we're in May now.
It's yeah.
It's about £11.50 an hour.
Right.
Do you know how much it was before? About £10.
£40 an hour?
No, about £10.
£10.
Right? Now.
£1. That is
brilliant. Per hour, actually. Yeah.
Per hour.
Right. So what it is, the government is trying to keep going with inflation, right?
Yeah.
But they want 2% inflation, not 10%. So they anyway.
But it's very different from what Harold Wilson tried to do with his 4%, with his wages and prices. Wages, and because I remember studying that in the university, prices and wages. He created like 4%. All right. So that had some kind of balance to it, but all that balance is gone now. There isn't any sort of. Yes, there is a rise.
No, tell me about the balance. Let's focus on the balance.
Well, because it was Keynesianism before Margaret Thatcher. It was before the market shock of Thatcher, right? That Keynesian period where he actually called the prices wages.
All right,
balance.
let me focus you a little bit more.
So it was a trade-off.
So the water bill has gone up, the electricity has gone up, the gas has gone up, food's gone up. Your rent's gone up, your wages is not going to cover it. So what have you got to do as a worker? What does your union do for you? What is London Transport? How many?
Well, they go on. I suppose they have a ballot, right? And in that ballot, they democratically decide whether to take industrial action or not.
So if you don't get a pay rise and you don't have, you don't get a pay rise and you don't have industrial action, what happens to you for the next couple of years or so?
You get poorer and poorer, and debt, and into mortgage arrears, into debt arrears. You get into arrears, and maybe that's why crime's going up. Maybe that is why
crime is going up. And
maybe people who are working are adding to their food by stealing something. I don't know.
And that's exactly.
I've just made that up, but that seems very strange.
So that formula about wage and prices, right? So today you have to fight. You have to fight to get an increasing wage.
Yes, but you see, there's a funny the word fight, because when you talk about unions, it's a collective fight, and they're fighting. All the members, right, are fighting for each, as well as themselves, for each other, to actually, like a rising tide lifts all boats. So they're actually fighting together for something more idealistic, that they're all together. But under pure capitalism, it is a sort of a Hobbesian fight of all against all. So the war of all against all, as Thomas Hobbes spoke about, is the war of living within the market, which is a vicious battle of one individual against another.
And who was Mrs. Thatcher's biggest enemy?
Humanity.
Arthur Scargill. And
Scargill.
And what did he represent?
The National Union of Mine Workers, who were part of the three big unions, right, that were under Keynesianism, were negotiated with. They were the three big unions from the beginning of the century. The steel workers, the dock workers, and the miners were part of the industrialization that had grown since the wealth of slavery was reinvested into industrialization, and they developed some quite sort of powerful means of getting justice for their members.
And now,
and they were attacked one by one.
And now, where is the union?
Most of them have been shattered, haven't they?
So how is it you're going to get a wage rise when all the prices has gone up?
Well, you won't. You won't. It's you know, people won't get they won't get anything, will they? They might get a little bit of topping up with the universal credit, but that's it. They might get a bit of they'll get some kind of, but they won't. They'll just get poorer, won't they?
All right, I'm going to leave it there because I could carry on. No.
Before we go, I want to say something anecdotal. That is very nasty but hilarious. Now, it's now for everybody who's listening, right? It is election day, especially in London, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Sadiq Khan versus Susan Hall and a few other people. I voted Green, Zoe Corbell, right? That's me. But I'm not. You know, I don't mind if Sadiq wins. That's great. You know, but either one fine. But I watched this on a left-wing video called Joe.
Okay.
Now they talked about Suzanne Hall's mishaps, foibles, right? Mishaps, yeah.
Okay.
Right. We saw the one where Ben Kentish was talking with and all the people from the assembly, right? And was asking about her racism, her vicious racism to Sadiq Khan, which he wouldn't apologise for. Wow. And she said that was in the old days and that. But the next clip was absolutely brilliant. Now it was Nick Farini, who is Mr. Daily Mail. So he's not a lefty, he's not even a liberal, but he gotcha. It was a gotcha moment, and he said, "Here's a clip of you, right? With surrounded by the London transport people, right? When you had your purse stolen." And this was proof of crime, right? And she was very happy about that. But then he said, you didn't really mention that later, that actually your money was handed back
to you.
So he says, isn't it very strange? And this is like, my sides were bursting because I love fun. I'm a fun lover, and this is fun. This is fun. This is fun. That. If you took if you could took the American Jimmy Kimmel and mixed him with Ben Elton and put him together with all sorts of with other stand-up comedians who I can't come to mind at the moment, but you mix them all together, this is perfection. He said, is the he said, did you lose or did you lose your purse or was it stolen? I'm not sure. Yeah, but it proves that crime's going up. No, please answer the question, right? Why would a pickpocket give the money back with all the everything in it? Was he incompetent? What is it? Has a good day? Why would that happen? And how?
All right,
Is there possibility you're not being totally honest with us? And by this time, right, my bladder was loose and I was, unable to think anymore.
All right, Nick Ferrari.
Wonderful.
Nick Ferrari and crime. Now, there was a massive stabbing. A guy with a long sword, right?
I noticed that the boy who was, it might not have been anything to it because obviously the man was psychotic, but I noticed the boy was
a young black boy.
African, a young black boy, Brazilian or Colombian or something.
A young black boy.
So that's not mentioned, but it's.
Oh, it is mentioned now. It is mentioned now.
Oh yes.
You see,
there is, yeah, and if you think about all the racist dog whistling.
Oh, that's what I'm about to get to. So. The Commissioner of Police,
anti-migrant hatred.
The Commissioner of Police was with your favorite radio presenter yesterday, right? Actually, I was, and he was asked, what about the stabbings and the thing? And the Commissioner of Police says, yes, stop and search is very, very effective, right? And
maybe banning the sale of samurai.
No, and for
on the free market, might be but more effective.
Yeah. So how does stop and search work with the white guy with the samurai? In fact, stop and search only applies to black people, right? Yeah. Right.
No.
Okay. And a few hours ago, yesterday, we had a kid who smashed a bottle and cut up a couple of people in the classroom, right? And the question is, how does stop and search work with that? Well, it doesn't. What the commissioner did, right, straight off, in order not to focus, I did a little bit of research. The Metropolitan Police is actually in special measures. Remember the Sever Everard case, the police officer?
I went down during the lockdown. I went to visit South London, and I saw the memorial place for that woman who'd been murdered by the rapist.
The last report was that 50.
Terrible. And it really hit me by being there and seeing the people who came down on a memorial.
Right. So the last report I heard was 50% of the new recruits of police officers didn't have a face-to-face interview.
Oh, because of lockdown.
Right. Because they're saying indirectly they got criminals. 50% of the new recruits are criminals, right? Now, we still have loads of problems. The flying squad originally was one of the fantastic, right? Was disbanded because there was more criminals in there than anything, right? And as we look into the police force, they're not carrying out and doing their duty how they're supposed to. One thing I've learned is that once an officer makes a mistake, one officer tasered and I think it was an 85-year-old woman in a nursing home because they called them there because she was giving problem. This old woman was tasered. So the commission
was she white or black?
Well, that doesn't matter. So what the police did was say they're not going to attend any calls for people with problems.
Mental health problems.
Right. So they said. So what the police?
Oh yes, I remember that.
Right.
Terrible.
Right. What the police do, instead of disciplining the police officer, saying that this is absolutely wrong, right? Do you remember the black guy who got shot driving his car up in Streatham, right? When that police officer was being tried, which was a while back, we had other armed police officers say they're going to put their guns and yeah, I'm thinking to myself, those officers that's put their gun and decide to
go
protest.
on strike.
Well, yeah, kind of.
An armed strike.
I think all those police officers should be sacked. Because if you want to kill somebody, right, and not be able to justify it.
But it's a free country. You should be allowed to kill people if you want to, shouldn't you?
Do you remember
freedom, isn't it? Free,
do you remember Mendez?
I mean,
in Vauxhall train station, and on in control of that was the last commissioner, the woman commissioner, right? Why was he shot? They said he jumped over the barrier and what have you, right? The Mendez was, the officer was standing over, and
he was because he was dark skinned.
Remember that
he was meant to be Arab looking, but he was Brazilian.
He was Brazilian. You're right. He's an electrician.
And if you asked him, he was an electrician. And if you spoke to him first, after all, he's not. He's you know, he would. You could speak to him. See if I mean, seeing as you already had pointed guns at him, you would speak to him.
So why? So why should we? So we should just accept that police officers can go around shooting people, remain anonymous, even though they've killed the wrong person for the wrong reason. Remember one of the biggest riots we had, the last biggest riot? It was in Tottenham, right? I forget the guy's name.
Broadwater Farm?
No, not Broadwater Farm. It was 2011. The last riot.
Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, it was because of a lad down in Tottenham who was shot, right? I don't think they still found the gun, right? Right. Anyway, so the basic thing is you could go around. So the police wants permission to go around shooting people, right? And we don't want to know the police officer who the police officer is, and they can continue going around shooting people, right? So that's a...
Now, let me say something here. You see, when we're seeing this with Palestine as well, right? We live in a society everywhere in the world with a class divide, but everywhere there's a racial divide, and we can add to a gender divide, sexuality divide, etc., etc. But the biggest fault line that's always used by all ruling classes is that ethnic divide, that racial divide, and it's come from the time of slavery till now, where a dark person's life is worth less than a light person's life. They were talking about this. I remember just this morning they were talking about. They're still carrying on talking about you know, like some stripes and stabbings and that, right? That happening in England, right? And then later they're talking about the UN talking about the Israeli army shooting an 8-year-old was running away. So a dark person's life, right? A dark child, a dark woman, a dark family, right?
Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything.
Zero.
So, and internationally, and here, so some actually, as long as they only have riots in black areas, right? They can use that as propaganda, as further doubling down on the racialist concepts. You know, migrants coming in through boats and saying that it's their own fault because there are crime gangs amongst them, etc. Right, and not saying that they're running away to save their life. So that which would be, you see, it's understandable, right, if a white person ran away from Afghanistan to save their life. That's, you see, that, or Iran. That would actually be something which would be sentimentalized.
All right, we're going to go on to Gaza, but 2 points I got to think before I forget it. So you can stop and search the black youths, while the general population are walking into any supermarket, clearing the shelves and walking out. You can stop and search the black youths, right, while there's an opioid epidemic. In fact, there's some dangerous drugs out there right now, and there's a warning right now that over the summer, right, that people are going to be they're going to be dying from this bad batch of drugs, right? So you're not tracing the drugs thing, which is a massive problem. People are committing suicide. In fact, if I'm honest, I've just heard that a friend of mine from the Manor House side of thing has died. And I think
Well,
it's,
well, you see, the thing is, if you think about the poisonous way that dark-skinned people, black people, dark-skinned people, foreign people, people with foreign religions, foreign ethnicity, what have you, have over a long period been associated with crime, associated with violence, and associated with disease.
two things that's come out there. It's
It's insidious, and it comes through the media, through the educational system, and it is really drenched, and people
they believe it.
are drenched with this.
Yeah.
Listen, when I was a child, I'm sorry to say I believed it, because what else was there?
Right.
I remember at school making racist jokes. Because I thought that was normal. I made anti-black jokes, I made anti-Pakistani jokes, I made anti-Irish jokes. As well as also other forms of idiocy, like a mother-in-law jokes and jokes about women who were sex mad or what have you. It was all victim blaming, but I didn't know it at the time. Now. And I was told it's just,
Banter.
banter,
Yeah.
having a laugh, Bernard Manning like. But I look back in horror. You see, I remember, right, I and my family, I was at the age of 15, right? Now, no one would ever believe this, right? It really seems strange. But this was just in the late 1960s, right? I and my family, right, were watching television, right? And we saw the black and white minstrel show. The walk around, bones, the circle, the jazz hands, right? But blackface, that wasn't that long ago. It's horrendous. That was supposed to be, that was entertainment. And I remember really enjoying it. On one level, I enjoyed it for the
Entertainment value.
No, not just the entertainment, but the skill.
Yeah.
They were very good musicians.
Yeah.
They were good tap dancers.
Yeah.
Beautiful tap dancers. Gregory Hines and people like that, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know that the blackface was part of the humiliation and degradation. Now it makes me sick to my stomach thinking about it.
And what
I remember reading right in Morley College the history of jazz dance. Beautiful, and I went through it from the slave trade. And the most painful bit, right? The history of
Jazz.
jazz dancing, and I went through a very painful bit, right, about the minstrel period. But it was the minstrel period which had allowed black performers to actually get on the stage. Otherwise they weren't allowed on the stage, because they actually, black performers joined the black and white minstrel show, and then they decided not to blow blackface anymore or burnt cork on, and to do what they were doing, and they were very good. And what people really liked was the skill and the entertainment which they had learnt. But it was a very, very awful period.
what's
In fact, the first was white Irishmen were blacking up, and the first man who was famous for, I think, setting up the black and white minstrel shows was someone called James Edgar Rice. And it, looking back, was really awful. And this humiliation, right, and this carries on and on and on and on today.
And what's happened, what's really bad from my point of view, with some black people, they actually believe it. They've actually internalized it. It's become them.
Well, just a little while ago, Kemi Badenoch,
God.
right, said, I can't remember, what did she say about
it helped. It wasn't a great part of the business structure of the country. They didn't make that much money from slavery.
Yeah,
something like
oh my God.
I know. Now that's a good example.
That's James Cleverly, Kemi Badenoch. Look.
That's a good example, right, of how they've internalized it and they began to believe it.
Rishi Sunak. Suella Braverman, a pretty. Well, I don't think.
She's
no,
not so pretty.
No, not so pretty. So, pretty ugly.
Right, but the other thing as well about back to the economic situation, and my friends there over the last few years in Finsbury Park.
And Kanye West.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's Donald Trump's best advocate. So one thing I've learned,
and he's anti-Semitic.
Oh,
and
good.
Donald Trump, who's a great supporter of Israel, thinks he's brilliant.
Yeah, well, good luck. And that's a whole different.
Oh.
Right. So what happens economically? You see, when people get poorer and they don't even realize it, because everybody, as we look over there, is in the same boat, right? You look around you. I say, oh, Graham, my electricity gone up, and you're gonna go, oh yeah, my electricity's gone up, right? And all our friends are and it becomes normalized after a while.
Yeah, normalization.
Right? But you don't really.
But that's how. Yeah, but everything becomes normalized after a while.
And that kicking it in the long grass is a political strategy.
Look, what people. Look, you don't hear too much about Palestine anymore because like flies,
Actually, we'll come back to the
disinfect and get rid of them. They're just dying. Okay, fine. Yeah, well, have you heard that before? Boring. It's boring, isn't it now? Isn't it? It's boring.
No, it is not today. No, we'll get back to that. But
and soon, asylum seekers being sent to Rwanda will become normalised. It's okay.
All right. Okay.
So
one of the reasons why the commissioner has chucked this thing about stop and search, and it only applies to black people. Why is it white people don't feel that stop and search applies to them? But anyway, here's the point. There was a report about crime.
Because they get so angry, they'd stop it.
Right. There was a report about crime that came out about the whole country, and it found that people up in the north, right, there's a big increase in crime, right? Violent crime and people thieving from the shops, and right. So what the commissioner has done, by chucking this dog whistle, it's a piece of red meat.
Red meat.
Everybody goes running after that, and they're not looking at the other factors. And one of the factors, the Metropolitan Police is in special measures, which means they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's lots of hospitals that are in special measures because they're in crisis.
Here we go, the race card.
Exactly. Everybody goes for it. But they don't look at what the police are supposed to be actually doing, right? Are you the drugs? What are you doing about the drugs? Is that opiate?
No, it's funny you should mention, because drugs are associated with black people as well. Ridiculous. Drugs are associated with black people.
Yeah.
Isn't that unbelievable? Unbelievable.
What kind of drugs? Is that deserving drugs? Actually,
undeserving drugs.
Now,
oh, I love that. You've got material. I like that material. Right. You should work for Susan Hall. Really brilliant.
And which class of drugs? Right. There's a lot of people who take in, was it cocaine and amphetamines and
no,
what have you.
Cocaine is for rich people. Crack is for poor people. There's a class system.
Do you remember snuff?
Cocaine is for rich people.
I know.
What poor people can afford?
Do you remember
cocaine?
snuff? Do you want some snuff, dear chap? Remember when that was the thing? Snuff is I think was cocaine. They used to.
I didn't know that.
Yes. When last it was only for the rich people.
But I think it was something very special for rich people.
Snuff.
Wasn't that what all the opium wars was about? To sell them. I mean, where were they going? The opium, when it was taken from China, where was it going? The Navy brought it.
Did you hear about that thing in the?
I mean, they wouldn't do it for nothing.
Did you hear about that thing? The House of Commons, they've done a cocaine test. The House of Commons in the toilets, and they found there's a whole heap of, and they did a test on like the notes a while back, and they found that half of the notes was contaminated with cocaine and stuff. Right, but yeah, so stop and search the black kid. Don't go after the people pushing cocaine.
I think the answer is to legalise cannabis, like they've done in Jamaica. and Germany.
So
And many parts of the United. In fact, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration have declassified cannabis.
So what are you going to do about all the black folks who are in prison for willing and dealing cannabis? They've set up the market for the capitalists to come in, right, and sell without being with license, right? Meanwhile, all black folks are in prison.
Well, I don't think any, you know, then I don't think any sort of gangsteroids in Brixton, however nasty they might be as people, right, will ever be able to afford a big boat, right? That you know that crosses the channel, and so you know there's obviously very wealthy people buy and sell these things.
I tell you what, we could do immigration today, but I tell you what, I'm going to go on to the last subject is going to be about what is happening in the campus in America. What's your twist on that?
Well,
Have you been updated?
It's obvious that thugs are going in and attacking peaceful protesters, so that they not only to intimidate them and to show them who's boss, right? But also to actually allow them to be blamed for the violence which is inflicted on them by thugs.
Have you seen any of the footage about how the...
No, I haven't.
And the campuses...
I haven't, but I saw TYT this morning from America, left-wing video, the Cenk Uygur talking about that.
All right.
So but I didn't see the footage. No.
No, you seen how they equating it to the protests?
Yeah.
The Vietnam War protests.
Vietnam War.
You know, and they talking about the students and stuff.
Oh, Kent State University. What was it? Mayor Daley. Didn't he? I think I can't remember very much, but I think he used the troopers.
New York.
Shoot them down. Kent State. I don't know, where was it? Somewhere.
I mean,
Chicago.
All the campuses.
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw one or two of them. I haven't got the precise detail, but what I wanted from you is because over here we're not aware of the worldwide protests, and all the campus in America is actually protesting. We've had specific protests outside where Biden there was a fundraiser for somebody, and they were out there. So there's this consistent and constant protest about the Palestinian situation, you know, and I heard there are going to be some.
The only person who really came out about it, and I heard that on the BBC last night,
yeah,
was what's his name, the American socialist Sanders came out and spoke about it.
Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. Yeah.
Bernie. Yeah.
And Bernie Sanders.
He's Jewish.
He's Jewish. There we are. And when that was put to him, he said, don't equate Judaism with Israel.
Yeah. Bernie. So, Graham. So was that? What was on your mind? I mean, because this is called "What's on Your Mind." Because the first question
what's on my mind?
No, so that was the first question I was supposed to ask you. What's on your mind?
What's
and then
on
you
my
think.
mind?
But so I've got to fit it in somewhere.
Okay, well,
was that what was on your mind?
As Descartes would say, what's a mind?
Actually, last thing before we go, the voting.
The voting.
Right.
I've done it this morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's
green.
What do you?
Green.
Yeah. What do you predict? What's going to happen? What's the craziness?
Look. I'll just make
Richie.
I'll make up a bit of nonsense.
Richie managed to get one guy on a plane.
I think the people in the small villages and the red and blue walls and all that, I think the Johnson sweep, you know, of the countryside, you know, based on hope, land of rope and Tory and Winstonism, right? I think all that you know, where the empire was shaking. I think that the countryside and the towns will go Lib Dem and Labour.
Okay.
But I think the inner cities might go independent and Green with Labour.
I haven't got a clue. But what
I don't know. I
what,
made it up.
What I heard you say just now reminds me
because
of...
remember, the inner cities, right, were people who were especially the young and the people in unions and in migrants and that. A lot of them were the left wing of the Labour, the old base of the Labour Party, and that base has been kicked out by Starmer. Starmer's concentrating on like ex-Tories and patriotism and things like and people who are bigoted. I think that's Starmer. I don't know whether he is bigoted or not, but he as an opportunist he's prepared to play who pretend to be friends with bigots and make them think that he's a bigot as well. So he's captured them, and I think that so in the small towns, right, that Starmer will do well, because people hate the Tories now because they can't, because of the cost of living crisis. And I think that inner cities will either not vote, unfortunately, or they'll vote other small left parties. I was looking at the trade union and socialist alliance, but this I thought, no, I want to go vote Green this time.
All right, so next week we'll find out the results and we'll tell you what we
find out
think.
the results.
But you remind me of the Conservative Party. So you've got the choice between idiots and clowns. The last time a clown won, right? We had one idiot who the cabbage lasted much longer than her premiership. Yeah. Right. So you got idiots. And you got Clown Johnson.
10 years to grow a cabbage. She wrote a book, didn't she? 10 years to grow a cabbage.
Oh, that was a book.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, the cabbages do take a long time to grow.
And Starmer now has turned Conservative light.
Starmer won't last a long time because there's people who really and the power behind it are people like this Bank of England, what's it? Rachel Reeves are the real and what's his name? West Street. I think people and Blair behind the scenes. I think they're the real power, and I think Starmer's just an opportunist, and I think he's not left or right.
Yeah, he's like Tony Blair.
I don't even think he's a right winger. No, I don't think he's a Tony Blair.
No, as in being an opportunist.
Right winger.
No, as being an opportunist.
Yeah, he's not. No, Tony Blair was an opportunist, but he was also a right winger. But I think Keir Starmer's not even a right winger. I think he's just an opportunist. I don't think he has an ideology.
I don't blame.
I think he doesn't. I think he's he just wants to sit there he wants to sit on the throne.
I don't blame. Yes, he does.
Constipation.
I don't blame Starmer. I blame the British public, right? Because they don't know. They all think that they're conservative. They want to be aspirational. They want to be rich. They think they're in control.
Aspiration. Yeah, but think about it. This is how it works, symbiosis, right? Right, with Murdoch and things like that, and with the education system.
Okay.
People have been conditioned. This way, look at psychology, social psychology now. People get conditioned, right? And then they replay their conditioning. Yeah. And then their conditioning gets replayed back to them. And you see, you can't dog whistle to a person that actually doesn't like the bones, right? So if people, have been conditioned to like bones, the educational system, right, has, I mean, as I've said about the black and white minstrel show, the cultural miseducation is so deeply entrenched. Yeah. Because very often I've had a conversation with somebody who I thought was left wing, and we've been going on quite well, and all of a sudden, they've gone, well, yeah, you're right, but I don't agree with you on what? Well, on the, I don't think we should be giving so much money to those people that don't want to work.
All right, let me.
And then I have to reinvent the wheel.
All right, reinvent the wheel.
And I don't think we should be giving, and we should have so many of these people coming over, and it's like, oh, I thought, yeah. So I think the homeless should be helped. That's really, yeah.
Right.
But those people who come over on boats, oh.
Let me give you a psychological.
This is the deeply entrenched.
Right. Now, how do you uneducate yourself? That's great. It's no, because you see, it's a conundrum, and actually, I've managed to uneducate myself. Right? It's a very difficult.
Right. Okay.
It's a very difficult process. Now, you said the education system, and you bombard it every day, and so you begin to believe, right? So you have to now unbelieve. Right?
Yeah.
What you believe. A good example you gave was the
but
minstrel.
without new information, you see, you can't not know what you've learned, but you can add to what you've learned to such a point that it starts shaking the foundations. You can add information, but you can't minus information.
All right. So, yes, that's good. So what you do, the information you have, you don't act on it. You only use it as information.
I think so.
So the new information you have, you act on that, but that old information which you knew was wrong and think, you don't actually act. You don't use that anymore as your part of your program and how you do things. But you know what? It's very hard for some people, like abusers, domestic abusers, even personality trait in businesses, right? Actually, even sexual offenders, right? It's so ingrained and so deep, right, that it's part of the hardwiring. Some people are so hardwired they can't. In the sort of criminology thing, people, once they set off on a certain route, they just can't change. They'll always be.
No, but there's a certain pessimism in what you're saying, because this is the nurture-nature debate, isn't it? If you say it's human nature, then there's nothing we can do. Even if it's right, then that's it, isn't it? Because the basis of social conservatism is to say nothing ever changes. People are as they are. Right? The basis of liberalism is that people can change bit by bit. The basis of socialism is that people can radically change, right, by making it possible. Conservatives, right, say people can't change because it's either outside because of God or inside their genes.
All right, let me
which is the more modern version.
Let me give you a practical example.
It's called essentialism. In philosophy, it's called essentialism, being essential, determinism. A person is determined.
Okay. All right, so here's a simple thing in relation to that, right? Now, veganism, we're natural carnivores. Do you believe that?
No, we're not. We're omnivores.
Omnivores.
Look, our teeth, right?
Yeah.
Right. We have teeth. The back teeth, the molars, are in common with sheep.
Right.
The incisors are in common with tigers. Right. We have both. We are omnivorous. Human beings have always been omnivorous.
Which means we what? Animals and plants.
Yes, both.
Right. Now.
And that happens around the world. People do both.
Yes. And
the only thing they can't do without is food. Ask any Palestinian, they'll tell you. We can't do without food.
Right. And
they'll say, if you ask them, you can ask them in Arabic, and or Hebraic, right? So, you can say to them, what would you like to eat? And they'll say, what have you got? And they'll say, well, I've only got meat. Say, well, I'll have that. So, well, I've just got vegetables. I'll have that. Right. Rice, pulse, yeah, I'll have that. Peanuts, anything, right? Sand? No, I can't eat sand.
Right. So fundamental changes and unlearning what you've learned, right? So a lot of people have gone vegetarian, right? Which is how much mental energy does that use? How much determination do you need?
I don't know what to say about it. People have a choice. As long as
Do they?
as long as they're eating, it's all right. Why not?
I don't think they have a choice.
What do you mean?
They're driven by.
Look, in India, due to their religion, people eat vegetables.
Yeah, and the cow.
And so what?
And the cow is sacred.
Yeah. But so the point is, so what?
No, it's about the strength. It's about the individual strength.
No,
about-
there's a lot of people in India who are very strong.